You're watching HCAM TV, and for more Hopkinton, visit HCAM Ed.
Where's everybody tonight?
Through the chair, you're live on HCAM TV.
Holiday
All right.
hangover.
Thanks, Bob. What's that, John?
Holiday hangover.
Yeah. Hopefully everyone remembers there's a meeting. So I know for some folks, for me, today was actually our holiday for New Year's. But I'll go ahead and get started with the script, and then hopefully we'll have a quorum shortly. So good evening, everyone. This is Gary Trenzel, Planning Board Chair. I hereby call our January 3rd, 2022 meeting to order. This open meeting of the Hopkinton Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with the recently signed an act extending certain COVID measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act includes an extension until April 1st, 2022, of the remote meeting provisions of the governor's March 12th, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The new law has two major parts. First, the new law allows public bodies to continue providing live, adequate alternative means of public access to the deliberations of the public body instead of holding meetings in a public place that is openly and physically accessible to the public. Second, the new law authorizes all members of a public body to continue participating in meetings remotely. For this meeting, the Planning Board is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's web meeting calendar and the board's agenda identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting is being broadcast by HCAM through multiple channels. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website via the web meeting calendar. Unless otherwise noted, the public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda, unless I note otherwise. Before we turn to the first agenda item, permit me to cover a few ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business. I'll introduce each speaker of the agenda. We'll go through the agenda shortly. Not every agenda item will feature public comment. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment. Please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and begin with your name and address. You'll be afforded 3 minutes for questions and comments. Finally, each vote taken in the meeting will be conducted by roll call. And it looks like we have a quorum. Let's do a quick roll call. Members, when I state your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mary?
Mary Larson Marlowe, present.
Rob?
Rob Benson here.
Fran?
Randy, I'm present.
Jane?
Jane, present.
Dave? I know Dave said he's going to be a little bit late. Sundar?
Sundar Sivaraman present, and Happy New Year to all board members and all the listening public.
Shahadul?
Present. Happy New Year, everyone.
And Ron?
Ron Prefer present.
All right, and staff, when I call your name, please respond to the affirmative. Mr. Gelsich?
John Gilsich present.
Ms. Pemberton?
Stephanie Pemberton, present.
All right, let's get going. And hopefully you've all had a chance to review the meeting packet and the agenda. I thought what we do, since we have a couple of we'll go ahead and hold off on the zoning articles for the warrant until later in the meeting. I know we have a few applicants here, so what we'll do is we'll hit the Tennyson Swim Club extension request first. So I'm hopeful it's going to be a relatively quick one. Then we'll get to the Chamberlain-Whalen discussions. And then we'll get to the remaining administrative stuff. So Chamberlain-Whalen traffic calming, and then the bond amount discussion vote. We'll get to the zoning articles. Sound okay?
I'm not getting intro. I can't hear.
Mary, I know you're planning to cover off on the, I know you're planning to lead the discussion on the Chamberlain-Whalen traffic calming, and I apologize, I didn't reach out to you beforehand, but I'm wondering if you would also be willing to manage the discussion on the bond amount, because I would prefer to recuse myself on that one as well.
Sure, no problem.
Notice, but I'll give you a couple minutes now. I think it should be pretty straightforward, but
okay.
if you wouldn't mind covering that one, that'd be great.
No problem. Do you want me to do that first, or are you going to cover the?
No, let's hit the, let's do the Tennyson Swim Club extension request first.
Okay.
And is the applicant here? Don't see the applicant. So actually, let's hold off on that one. Let's get to the Chamberlain Street stuff. Since I see both Kathy and Paul are both here.
Through the chair.
And, yes, go ahead,
I
John.
don't think the tennis club applicant will be here.
You don't think they'll be here? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna. They may, but I don't think they will.
Either way, let's go to Chamberlain Street. I think and we can talk about the Tennyson Swim Club afterwards, since the Chamberlain-Whalen folks are here. All right, so Mary, I'm going to hand it over to you, and I'm gonna, as I mentioned, I'm going to recuse myself, just given my location on Chamberlain Street. So I'll be listening in, but I am going to turn off my camera.
Sounds good. Okay. So let's start with the discussion of the Chamberlain-Whalen bond amount. This is related to the road construction. I don't know, John, if you have anything that you can pull up for us to refer to in relation to this. And Kathy or Paul, would one of you speak to this?
Sure, I can. To get things started, if you'd like.
Oh, Kathy, we can't hear you very well.
Help if I would unmute myself. Sure.
There we go.
Oops. Sure, I'd be happy to speak to kind of what we submitted, the overall status, and then certainly if Luckner has revised our our estimates and such. So we have pretty much finished up the infrastructure roadway related to the Chamberlain-Whalen subdivision. So that's the extension of the existing roads as well as the emergency access. As you know, we're in the process of selling the land and the improvements to Toll Brothers. So as part of that, we're looking to turn over the infrastructure. So what we've identified here are the remaining work items. The majority of those work items are related to the top course of pavements, both for the sidewalk and the roadway, the street trees. So all the things that would typically be done after the houses were actually built and in. We had identified the lot corner pins, the driveway aprons, the monuments. We also have the overlay on the Chamberlain Street widening that is still left to do, and that's just pending Verizon actually moving the poles so that we can do that overlay, but we don't anticipate that's going to be done in the next couple of weeks or completed in the next few weeks. We did include on here the trail work that was committed by us to do as part of the open space donation and improving the trails. We've actually completed most of that, but at the time we submitted this, that was still an open item for the clearing of the trails and the boardwalks. And then I see that Luckner added a few more things regarding the as-built and some of the items that are required for turnover and street acceptance and such. So that's really what I have.
Thanks, Kathy. John, do you have any comments from any town departments or from yourself in reviewing this?
So no comments, but Luckner, who is the town's peer review engineer, is on the call. I think he was having some audio troubles, but Luckner, if you're able to unmute yourself and just describe your estimate. He sent a revised one today. So there's two versions of Luckner's bond estimate. One of them is named revised January 3rd. So that's the one that I've got shared on the screen right now.
Okay. That's to the right on the screen?
Yeah. Oh, on my screen it is.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's shared.
Okay.
And so let me just scroll down to get to the total. So there's about $100,000 difference
Okay.
between the two estimates.
And there's roughly a $12,000 increase from the one that was in our packet, correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay. That's close to 13, okay.
So Luckner, are you able to unmute yourself?
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Yes. Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
Speaker, well, it's a pleasure to be with you. I had submitted the estimate, review it, the original estimate for 346,000. But there are some items that were not included. So I made a first revision, and the first revision came to 431,000, but subsequent to checking up other values, I revised it today to $444,312. This account for items that were not included in the developer's estimate with respect to the cleaning of the pond, the as-built, the street acceptance plan. Those items are now included in the estimate, as you can see. And I had also
John, could you bring up the
review-
first page? Okay, thank you. Go
Right.
ahead.
There are a couple of small changes that were made, but that doesn't include the value. The big change with the developers has to be with the street, the subdivision rules and regs calls for this, the trees to be at 40 feet apart on both sides of the roadway. I think in their estimate, it turns out that those trees will be placed on one side. So that's the big difference in values with their estimate. The street trees on their estimate is 36,400, and my estimate is more than double that, at 72,800.
Okay. And the other major,
Question on the street trees, I'm sorry. Could I ask a question on the street trees?
please go ahead.
Thank you. So Luckner, according to our plan, we have, and I did note it wrong on the original, I have 143 street trees between Whalen and Chamberlain. So was that just counting the trees on the approved plan and as noted on the landscape plan, or were you modifying that for those to be different or closer to come to the 182?
I did not go by the landscape plan. I went by the subdivision rules and reg as I indicated, which indicate that the trees must be planted 40 feet apart on both sides of the roadway.
Correct. So our landscape plan shows the tree placement, shows the tree spacing. I forget what sheet it is, but I can get you the sheet. So that the way that it's calculated out, at least on that plan, was 52 trees on Whalen and 91 trees on Chamberlain for 143.
Well,
So I just wanted to
indicated, we
understand
always
where
go
the
by
discrepancy
the,
was, if you did a
by
pure
the 40-foot rule from the
Well,
subdivision.
please don't talk at once. Go ahead, Luckner.
As I indicated, we always go by the subdivision rules and reg at 40 feet apart for the plan. And the landscape would be, we would consider that simply as a being diagram, just showing for configuration.
So
Okay,
through
so
the
that is,
chair.
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, so through the chair, usually we have these estimates go to the approved subdivision plan. So if we're looking at stuff like that, if there was a change to the subdivision rules and regs that was on the approved plan, we should go by the approved plan because that's what the town would have to build. We're not redesigning the subdivision plan to conform to the subdivision standards if it was approved otherwise. I think this is probably one of the only things that would really impact. Since the road, I can't imagine there was any other waivers granted for the other stuff.
No, there was.
So with a difference of 40 trees, it would be 16,000. Is that right? 16,000, that's the disputed amount. Are there any other questions that you have in terms of the amended numbers, Kathy?
No, we're fine with everything else.
Okay. So if we take the 444 minus 16,000, that would be acceptable to you?
Yes.
And amending the number of street trees to 142, that would be. No, okay.
143 on the street trees, and yes, we're fine with that.
Okay, 143. Yes, and do any other members of the planning board have questions or comments?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, Jane.
So is there a reason why we would go from 160 to 143 other than geographical issues? Is there a ledge problem? Is there a problem with not putting them in for some erosion problems or something like that? Why would we want to go for the most?
Go ahead, John.
Chair, just to jump in, this is already an approved subdivision plan. We are not relitigating the subdivision design. This is just a bond amount. So what is on the plan was approved by the planning board. That's what they're required to build. So we shouldn't be asking why are they, we shouldn't be getting into a conversation where they're going to change the subdivision plan based on this bond amount.
I agree, John.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members of the planning board?
So question to the chair.
Go ahead, Fran.
Mary, on one of the items there, the selective clearing for the trails, did I hear from the applicant that that has been essentially completed at this point, or is that something that still needs to be done? And if it has been completed, and if our reviewer agrees with it, should that item still be on there? Or is there still additional work that needs to be done?
Kathy?
So the tree clearing is substantially complete, and the boardwalks are at least, I would say, 50% complete and scheduled to be completed this week.
Actually, Kathy, can I answer that?
Go ahead, Paul.
How you doing? The boardwalk and the trails, they will be complete by the end of the day tomorrow. So again, it's pretty substantial, $40,000. Obviously, Luckner can go up there and look at it. We've met with Chuck from the trails. He's very, very happy with everything we've done. We've met him up there 2 or 3 times, but everything by the end of the day tomorrow will be completely done.
And John,
Yep.
Is there generally a process by which these things are approved before they're taken off the bond?
No. So they sit in a position right now where it may be done tomorrow, but where we are right now, they're not done. So we need to approve the bond with that to be completed, because for some reason they don't get completed tomorrow and they abandon the project, the town is still responsible for it. So they could either include that in the bond today or wait until the 31st for the next meeting and then have a revised bond amount.
All right, John, if we actually keep that obviously in this bond right now, if it does get completed by the time we end up, issuing the bond, do you take it off then, or you just include it right now?
So at any point, I think, I shouldn't say at any point. I think we're contracted with Luckner for maybe like 2 or 3 reviews.
Yep.
You can revise the bond amount, and we can
Okay.
reduce the bond as a board. I don't know if you're going to want to do that after one thing, though. It is a significant amount of money, so maybe you will. But yeah, if it's done tomorrow, and then you want to submit a new bond estimate for the 31st, we can do that.
Like I said, I don't want to, hold everything up. We're supposed to be closing with Toll Brothers in the next couple of weeks. And obviously on the 31st, we're going to want, the lot releases. So I don't want to do anything to screw that up, obviously.
Okay, so we'll proceed with these numbers at this time. And with the acceptance of the correction to the street trees. Are there any other questions from planning board members? Okay, so.
To the chair.
Yes, go ahead, Shahudil.
Thank you, Mary. Quick question. I think along the same lines, we've seen two revisions in the last few days, and then a minor revision in this meeting. So I think it would be good to kind of take a closer look after the meeting. If there are any other suggestions or error that we need to correct, that'd be good. But in the meantime, I think it makes sense that we proceed with what we have. But obviously, it's a needed one, but seems like there's a little bit of rush and corrections back and forth.
There are some corrections back and forth, but I think they can be quickly added up. So we can take care of it today.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask that John and Steph revise the street tree number to 143. So that's a reduction of 39 trees, and that number reduce the total for the street trees, add it up to the subtotal prior to the 20%, and then redo the 20% number and give us a new number, a new final number.
Gary has his hand up.
Okay, Gary?
I was waiting for comments from the public, but Gary Trendle, 31 Chamberlain Street, speaking as a member of the public, not as a member of the planning board. I just had one question on the Chamberlain Street widening 1-inch top coat. Can you just clarify, is that I think it's from the center trail down to the end of the street, but is that the full width of the road, or is that just the widened portion of it?
Kathy or Paul?
That's a good question. Do you have that answer, Kath?
It's just the widened portion of it.
Okay. And I actually was not aware that we usually did public comment on something like a bond revision, but I will open it up to anyone else from the public who might have questions.
Before you go there, Mary, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. I've been on.
No, that's okay.
So can you just give me a quick summary of the reduction of the number of trees?
Okay, this is in compliance with the actual approved subdivision. The 182 was from a calculation based on the subdivision rules and regs. The 143 is the actual, not as built, but the actual approved subdivision plan. So that's the way it was approved, and that's the way John says that we needed to do it as the approved version. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Second question.
Yep.
I don't know if you discussed it yet, but I brought up a couple of points to John, and I think I copied you as well, Mary, about additional items to discuss in the development. Is that something we should talk about now or separately?
John, I don't think it would affect the bond, would it? Some of these things were around the guardrails and things like that, right?
Yeah. Just pulling up the comments.
I think I would feel more comfortable discussing them now, Mary, just in case we have concerns.
All right. I think that's reasonable. Yeah, go ahead.
Read them?
Yes, please go ahead. I wanted to give a brief overview for the rest of the planning board members who didn't receive the comments, but Dave had identified and emailed to us about a week ago some additional, just small comments regarding the completion of the road and related things. So John's going to read the specific items.
Comment additionally, Mary, I was actually biking through the neighborhood and I met a gentleman on the last house on Whalen Road who had mentioned a couple of things to me. But go ahead, John, please.
Okay.
So I'll just start out by saying that these are not right now going to impact the bond amount, because the bond amount is for what's approved on the plans. Some of these may require amendments to the plan. So the first one is guardrails. Can wooden ones be used instead? Trees were taken down. Can some screening be added back in? And the old cul-de-sac, can the pavement be removed?
So yeah, those are just real brief descriptions I put in. But the first one, I think, John, was the guardrail. So my question to folks would be, were those guardrails on the plan?
Whether they are on the plan or not on the plan, they would still need to be changed from what was, I mean, if they're not on the plan, then they'd have to be added, which would be an amendment.
Could I respond?
Is this Kathy?
Kathy, yes. Can I
Kathy, go
respond?
ahead. You can respond.
I'm assuming you're talking about the guardrails that are over the new culvert on the Whalen Road extension. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, those guardrails were on the plan. And they do need to be metal because they were defined within our plan and actually identified by Beta as needing to be a certain requirement and compliance with state laws. So it was like a TL1 or TL2. I apologize, I don't remember which one requirement that requires them to be metal.
Okay, I'm just, I guess I would be a little disappointed that they weren't called out when we reviewed the plan and that our hired services didn't speak to us about that. Because I know that we have, in many other developments, we have, I'm fine with the anchoring of the being metal, but going across, the gentleman that I spoke to was very disappointed with it, and I'm very disappointed with it too, because it looks like a highway, you know. At the very least, could we have gotten the brown colored, you know, less obvious guardrails?
So,
John, do you have any input on that, John, as far as how this could back and forth?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to be too harsh here, but I mean, it's the planning board's responsibility to take care of the issues that they are concerned about. I mean, if Beta is going to the laws and saying these are required by law, it's not Beta's responsibility to nitpick the design of the subdivision to the planning board standards. I understand that's going to be something that, you know, the planning board might want, but as a planning board member, you're able to nitpick at that as well. And I'm not trying to pass the blame off of Beta or anything, but that's just how the process works. Beta is going to review it to the laws. They're going to review it to the subdivision standards. If it's not in the subdivision standards, then they're not going to mention, oh, hey, by the way, these are metal guardrails rather than wood. Is that something you would like? Because that's going to happen with almost every design aspect.
Right, I guess, Mary, maybe we could have a takeaway for the board,
zoning advisory committee.
yes, thank you, Zach.
Sure.
As far as, you know, not allowing silver metal bumpers, guardrails, but perhaps allowing the more aesthetic ones. Because we discussed this with the, you know, on Fruit Street with the guardrails there. And the state said they would change them from being the metal, bright aluminum metal ones to the, you know, less obvious brownish.
Yes.
So through the chair, if I could just
Yes.
make a plug for one of our other agenda items.
Go ahead.
We are looking to update the subdivision regulations. So if that is something near and dear to the planning board's heart, that's something we can include in our
Absolutely.
review.
That's what we'll do. We'll look at it during that time. Thanks. Regarding the street, well, just in general, for these comments that you've identified, and from this resident as well, Dave. Again, just to make it clear that we're not going to go back and redesign the subdivision that was approved before I was even on the planning board. So it's only if the development has removed trees, for instance, the second point, removed trees that were not identified as being removed, would additional screening be then a possible outcome for correcting that. So in terms of that item, you know, I think that needs to be checked in terms of, you know, were trees removed that were not planned to be removed.
If I can comment on that, too, Madam Chair. So the gentleman I spoke with, I think his name was Mark, he said that the actual machine went down into the culvert and removed trees. So that was his comment. I don't know if the applicant can speak to that at all.
We did not remove any trees that were not on the plan to be removed. And if they were down in the culvert, it was when they were doing the work. And the area next to the culvert on both sides are replication areas as defined and approved by Concom. So if you're talking well within the subdivision, we did not work anything out, and within our roadway, we've only done what is approved and was on the plan.
And I would expect that there was either Beta or someone else present at or reviewing the removal of trees afterwards. So
we were
John,
under the supervision of Goddard Consulting, so that's the wetlands, and it was also reviewed by Lucas Environmental on the Concom side, and then certainly Luckner's been reviewing our work as it goes along.
So I would expect that it would only be through identification from one of these oversight situations that we could then identify, something that needed to be corrected after the fact. So if something had been removed incorrectly, and nothing has, so nothing has been identified through those means. So,
Okay.
So that's all that's all I can say. I can't, I can't help but we can't take just someone saying that it was removed without having some proof to that effect. So.
Okay, I can touch base with him and see if he has any more details on that. I'm kind of just being the messenger on these. The third one was the cul-de-sac. So it's more of a question. The cul-de-sac was a circle and there's going to be changed to a road. Are they going to align, like remove the pavement of the circle part, or is it going to look kind of funny, be a straight road, then a circle, then a straight road?
I don't know if that was part of the plan. What is in the plan related to that?
What is in the plan is that remains as a circle. We're not straightening out that road at all. So it's basically a circle. We've extended Whalen into the subdivision, and then you go all the way down and there's another cul-de-sac. So again, it's built exactly to the approved plan.
Okay, so that's the answer. It's not being changed.
Okay, can I just make a comment on that?
Sure.
Madam? So I will say that like I said, I'm a little disappointed. I was on the board when this was approved. So I guess it would have been nice if those were called out, and I guess it's a lesson to myself to look at it more closely and ask more questions as this process goes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Okay, John, did you have a chance to recalculate the final total for the bond?
I did, but I just want to point out that Mr. Trendell has his hand up.
Okay. I can't see that for some reason in the way I have this. So, yes, Mr. Trendell, please, you have the
Sorry,
floor.
Gary Trendell, 31 Chamberlain Street, again, speaking as a member of the public. Just going back to the Chamberlain Street paving top coat, I did go back and look at the decision from April 30th, 2018, and condition number 26 reads, the subdivision plan includes a widening of portions of the improved existing Chamberlain Street to a uniform 18 feet in width. Following the satisfactory completion of the box widening, the applicant shall overlay the roadway with 1 inch of pavement. So I don't know if I'm interpreting that. To me, overlay the roadway, I'm assuming that's the entire road, but I'm curious if there's any professional opinion as to maybe maybe Luckner can comment on that, but that's written in the conditions.
And I would ask either John or Luckner to comment on that. In the way that condition is worded, what is your interpretation as to what the meaning is?
Hello, I did not hear. Hello, is that me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
I could not hear the question well. Is that the formulation for the 40-foot requirement? Is that what it is?
No, it is not. It's related to the top coat of the widening of the street, which is Chamberlain Street. After the widening, then it talks about after the completion of this, the developer would Gary, what is the exact wording?
It says, following the satisfactory completion of the box widening, the applicant shall overlay the roadway with 1 inch of pavement.
Shall overlay the roadway with 1 inch of pavement. From that statement and the way we have that worded in the condition, would that be the entire roadway? Or would that be only the portion that was widened? So the, shoulder, 40 feet, I don't know.
I could not hear the question.
You did not hear that?
No, I can hear with my speaker. It seems that I'm in issue with my speaker hearing.
Okay.
The question is overlaying the.
Overlay of the roadway.
Yes.
Yeah, so a portion of the existing Chamberlain Street, not the new roadway that is being built, but the existing street was widened. And right now, the plan is the final overlay of pavement will only be on the widened portion of Chamberlain, not on the entire roadway of Chamberlain, which would be, creating a smooth surface for the whole road. So we have a condition in the approval for this subdivision that says an overlay will be applied, a 1 inch overlay will be applied to the roadway. And my question would be, applying an overlay to the roadway, what does that mean to you? And how would you interpret that?
Based on what I'm getting here is that I had always thought that the entire roadway would be overlaid.
Okay, thank you. And John, your thoughts?
My interpretation of that would be whatever was widened would then be overlaid.
So you both interpret it 2 different ways. And
Through the chair.
And, okay, Ronnie?
Yes, having not been on the committee prior to this extension being, the subdivision being brought forth, so I can speak as a impartial. The way it is worded to someone completely unbiased here comes across as that the entire Chamberlain roadway would need to be a 1 inch overlaid, because otherwise it would have, my opinion would have been written as the a 1 inch just on the widening component. Like the way it was worded, the way Gary read it, that's how I would interpret it as a voting member of the planning board that wasn't there when we voted upon the actual subdivision.
Thank you.
Mary?
So, yes.
Through the chair.
Yes, go ahead.
If I may, John, is there any historical examples that we could cite on this at all? In terms
Not
of
that
how
I'm
it's
aware of.
done in the past?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I'd have to do some digging in our files to see if there's any historic examples. I don't know any that come to the top of my mind.
Yeah, I can't think of any widening situations that have happened recently either.
Yeah, I mean, my interpretation through the chair, my interpretation comes from the fact that if they're going to pave the entirety of Chamberlain Street, there's going to have to be some DPW involvement in that. And since DPW is not involved in this process, I understand Mr. Prefer's interpretation, but I could also argue the applicant shall overlay the entire roadway would work the opposite of what he said. So I don't necessarily think that makes it super clear. So my interpretation is, since they are talking about the widening and the paving in the same sentence or in the same condition, they would go hand in hand. Again, I wasn't here for this, so I don't know what the discussions were. I could look into
and I wasn't either. So
is there anyone on the planning board who was there for that discussion? Because obviously it's all hearsay unless, because sometimes a comma means a lot.
Yes, and it's unfortunate, but at the same time, Dave was here. I think Fran was.
I was here.
But but I wouldn't expect that you guys know those that level of detail of that particular condition. And unless it was captured in minutes or in videos of the actual meeting, that would probably be the only way to determine this. And so.
Yeah,
Through the chair.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
This is Paul. I'm sorry.
Yes.
This is Paul Mastriani. How you doing?
Oh, hi, Paul. Okay.
How you doing? Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was here throughout the whole the whole process as Kathy. You know, we never ever thought we needed to do the whole street. If we did, obviously, our numbers would be a heck of a lot higher if we had to pave, all of the road and go to DBW and whatever else would we have to do. And I'm not trying to shortchange, obviously, the town, but again, we were there throughout the whole process, and it absolutely was only supposed to be done where we widened the road.
I don't recall any discussion regarding DPW getting involved or anything other than the widened portion on that.
Through the chair. Dave.
Yes, go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm kind of going along with Fran and supporting, what John is saying, that it's just the widened section. That's the way I kind of interpret it. And like you said, I don't remember all those details ways back, but it's no different in my mind than what we asked the town to do when they put in sewers or water or anything. They only repave the section that they touch. They don't do the whole thing.
Okay. I can understand how it could be interpreted one way or the other. And I think this is just a lesson in wording of conditions to make sure that there's no ambiguity in the future. Okay. So, yes. Who's speaking?
Through the chair.
Oh, hi, Jane. Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember walking the site plan review when we walked it, and we only discussed the portion where the construction would impact the subdivision road of Chamberlain to the new road. And there wasn't much. There was very like 2 or 3 inches on each side of the road that were going to be impacted. And it was minimal at best. And Mastrianis's people were there and we were there, and we kind of said, oh, well, the right of way is the right of way and we can't do much about it.
Okay. Thank you, Jane.
Yep.
Okay. Can we close this issue?
Through the chair.
Yes, go ahead, Ron.
Is it possible to put this that we have discussed this and that was a consensus, so that 2 months, 5 months, a year from now, when memory fades again, we have it actually in writing what we discussed.
That would be excellent. So Stephanie, can you please call this out in the minutes? And Ron, I strongly encourage you to review the minutes when the draft comes out to make sure that it's in there. Thank you. Okay, John, do you have the revised total for us?
So if my math is correct, I have a new total of 425,592. So my math is the original subtotal from Luckner is 370,260. So $370,260 minus the $15,600 for the 39 trees, which gives us a new subtotal of $354,660. And then 20% of that is $70,932, which added together gives me $425,592.
Okay.
Is my math correct?
Paul and Sherry?
I trust you.
Okay. And I trust you as well, John. I would like to entertain a motion to modify the bond amount for the Chamberlain-Whalen to what was it? Go ahead, John. Give me the
$425,592.
There you
So
go.
moved.
Second.
Thank you. That was Fran and Ron.
Yes.
And I'll do a roll call vote. Fran?
Fran DeYoung, yes.
Ron?
Ron Prefer, yes.
Jane?
Jane Moran, yes.
Sundar?
Sundar Subramanian, yes.
Dave?
Dave Paul, yes.
Shahidul?
Shahidul Manan, yes.
And Mary Larson Modelo is a yes. And so it passes. Okay.
Hey, Mary, this is Rob.
Yes. Oh,
You
there
did-
you are. I was looking through the whole list and I didn't see you. I'm sorry. And Rob.
Rob Benson, yes.
I'm sorry, Rob.
That's okay.
Kathy?
Just before we leave the topic, unrelated to the bond, but if I could, just related to our next meeting, which will be the lot release. And we're tentatively on your 131 agenda for that. We just wanted to make sure that we were understanding that we're going to be looking for all 29 lots of the subdivision to be released. We understand we will put forth the bond as it was determined tonight, but that there's no other issues or anything that we need to be aware of that would slow down or stop the lot release process come the next meeting. So we are looking for all 29 lots to be released. So at the next meeting. And this was the primary driver or contingency for that and the bond putting forth.
John, is there any condition in there regarding the I can't think of the right terms. Go ahead. John, was there anything else?
The only thing that I can think of is the affordability.
That's what I was thinking.
Affordable units, but I want to say they are tied to the occupancy permit. So Toll Brothers would have to be responsible for those payments unless you've got something worked out.
Correct. We will be making the affordable payments, but they are tied to the actual building permits and the homes. So we'll work that out, and those will be paid in either before or at those defined timelines. Those were not tied to the lot release.
Okay, thank you.
We've just had problems through the chair. We've just had problems in the past where certain developers have gotten their lots released, sold them to another owner, and then they don't care about the occupancy permit anymore. And so now the owner is responsible for it, wasn't aware of it. This is a different situation, obviously, with two different developers, but I just want to make it clear that those are still in force and would need to get paid.
Thank you.
And I'll take a look at the decision before that meeting and just point out anything ahead of time. I don't foresee anything being an issue, but I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I don't know if you guys were sticking around for this next discussion, but I don't know whether or not it's necessary for you to, but the traffic calming discussion recommendation is next. And I'm going to summarize, kind of frame the discussion, all right? So just so we do not repeat the entire discussion that we already previously had. This is just giving background. The new Chamberlain-Whalen development has not yet had any new residents move in. So the discussion of traffic refers to the past and our expectations for the future, but not any reality of the future yet. There was a bond established to go toward traffic calming measures. I think it was $10,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
Okay. And however, we cannot and do not expect this funding to solve all previous and new traffic issues on Chamberlain Street and Whalen Road. That's not the purpose. It was simply a bond that the planning board at the time set up with the developer of the new sections of those roads to go toward some traffic calming. So Chamberlain has long experienced drivers speeding along the road, Whalen Road as well, I assume to a lesser extent, perhaps. Chamberlain and Whalen are both narrow streets with lots of trees lining the roads. Some of the residents have strongly objected to any cutting of trees for further widening, which would effectively eliminate the possibility of installing sidewalks because of those objections, if those are taken as sacrosanct. Center Trail truncates at Chamberlain Street. So bikers or hikers and walkers will naturally flow onto the roadway of Chamberlain Street. Residents on the streets, as well as, others, ourselves, and the Hopkinton Safety and Public Works all see the potential for safety issues with children and adults walking and biking along these roads. I'd like to point out that the planning board is generally not involved in decisions about street signage or traffic calming. We should rely on experts in our town departments and so on. Based on several discussions with DPW and Hopkinton safety officials, there's consensus with them that speed limit signs, stop signs, flashing yellow and red lights are not backed by evidence to have a significant effect on traffic speed. We all may have our own personal opinions about what would get people's attention, but they're talking about real evidence of studies that have been done, okay? Our town experts recommend a speed table as the most effective measure for this situation. The funding provided by the Chamberlain-Whalen bond will not pay for all of the speed table installation, but will provide most of the necessary funds. It's likely that the DPW will be able to cover the remaining costs out of the DPW budget. I do not have a guarantee. I do not have anything in writing, but I have just a conversation. Yes, that, it should cover most of it. We should be able to cover the rest of it out of the budget. Okay. So that's, don't take it as a guarantee or anything like that, but that's what I have right now. My recommendation is that the planning board votes to release the funds set aside for traffic calming to the Hopkinton DPW to go toward funding an appropriate traffic calming measure on Chamberlain Street, such as a speed table at the Center Trail intersection with Chamberlain. I think that the planning board needs to designate this for Chamberlain-Whalen, but provide a little bit of flexibility for the DPW as to the exact use, so that we don't have to go through a lot of discussions after the fact. Again, because, planning board is not expert on these matters. And we, I think recommending things for them to do, making sure it's in the Chamberlain-Whalen neighborhoods, is the extent to which we should be involved in the details. I'd also like to stress that additional needs of the Chamberlain and Whalen neighborhoods need to be addressed through normal town procedures in terms of what stop signs they may wish, the neighborhood may wish to have installed at certain corners, any other measures that are taken, because the funding from this bond can only accomplish a limited amount. All right. Okay. That said, I would like to open it up to the planning board for additional discussion.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Shahudu.
Sorry, it'll be quick. So thank you. I think this is a pretty timely recommendation and sounds very reasonable. Quick question is, do we have a sense of how much cost would be covered by this 10,000, or it's an open item at this time?
I do not have an exact number, but because if you get quotes on having a speed table installed, the costs are higher than if DPW does some of this themselves. They can accomplish this for less money. I got the impression that it was the $10,000 will cover 80 to 90% of the cost. But again, that's just a ballpark, conversation. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Fran?
Yeah, Mary, thank you for taking the lead on this and gathering input from other town officials. I agree with you that, that does not necessarily fall within the purview of the planning board. And I think working with our town officials and experts, coming up with the right type of solution is appropriate. My one question is, was there any additional public input or comment other than, I think the last time this was up on the agenda, it's probably been a month or 2 months ago now, where members of the public did kind of jump in. and provide feedback.
No, there was not any additional feedback from the public. I will, invite anyone here today to comment, but we did get extensive input from them that day. So that was the extent of it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Jane?
Sure. So my first question is, I've never heard of the speed table installation, whatever that is. That's new to me. Secondly, I can only think that $10,000, if that's the correct amount, is nowhere near the cost that would go to improving the cost for traffic calming measures. And I'm thinking just simple things like fog lines on either side of the roads to keep drivers in the center of the road, or even a center line if the road is too narrow, just a center line to help drivers keep to the center line of the road so that people stay where they should be, to keep them in their own channel. So that in and of itself, I don't think $10,000 is going to do, it's not going to do the trick.
Okay, first of all, $10,000 is the bond that we have, period. So we're voting on to release this to the DPW or not release it. So that's, those are our two choices, basically. Secondly,
so what happens if we don't release it?
It's just still held in bond, and none of this money goes to DPW for traffic calming.
Is there any way we can up it? Thank you, John.
Go ahead, John.
It's not a bond. It's the applicant is going, or the developer is going to just pay $10,000. So I guess it'll just be in reserve for whenever the planning board wants to use it. If the board doesn't vote to release it to the DPW, then find another project that's traffic calming focused that you can use the $10,000 for, or it doesn't get used.
So, thank you, John.
So going forward, how can we, because there, in my opinion, there is a definite need to come up with traffic calming issues for this area.
Absolutely.
And how, going forward, how can we up the ante here? And I would be in favor of reducing, voting for the $10,000 release, but we need a lot more. $10,000 is not going to do it.
Jane, this is not a discussion on everything that's needed for traffic calming in this town, because there's absolutely more traffic calming measures needed. And on Chamberlain and Whalen, there's definitely traffic calming needed. In fact, there has been well prior to a new development that this developer has been involved in. Okay, so I agree with all of those things, but the new development has simply helped us highlight the issue. It has not caused the traffic problems.
That's not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay, well then what?
I am saying that there needs to be more monies to go forward to propose traffic calming issues for the Chamberlain-Whalen issues, specifically fog lines, center lines, other issues that $10,000 is not going to do it.
Right. So my suggestion would be that any interested parties take this up with the appropriate town areas that handle the street control, the signage and so on. Muriel, I don't know if this would be directly with or hang on, Jane, or if it would be with DPW. I don't know what the procedures normally are, but it's certainly not within planning board purview. So, go ahead, Jane.
I could just add this. I've brought this up at several meetings, and the DPW has told me that over the years, because of cost restrictions and trying to stay within the budgets, that they've had to cut costs for things like fog lines and center lines and other safety features to stay within their meanings. So that was their choice and that was the town meeting's choice. So how do we get to the point? We're a planning board. So how do we suggest to the town members, when they come before town meeting, that, yeah, we need to get out there. We need to be on the forefront so that we can improve safety on all of our side roads and shortcut roads and other roads, so that we can have fog lines, so that we can have center lines, again, to traffic calm. It's about traffic calming. It's about keeping people in their own lanes.
So you're talking about a townwide initiative to address traffic calming and getting the funds necessary to do so. Okay,
Yes.
so it's not,
And to
you're
help-
not commenting on this issue.
No, I am.
Is that right?
I am.
But no,
you
no,
said
you're not
that-
commenting on the Chamberlain-Whalen issue. You're commenting.
No, I
on
am. You said there's $10,000, and I would like to see that some of that $10,000 go into center line or a fog line.
Madam
Okay,
Chair.
so that's two different things. Hang on. There were people before you, Dave.
Well, I'm just going to
So,
try to.
okay,
mediate a
so
little bit.
you're suggesting a different use for the $10,000 on Chamberlain and Whalen.
Yes,
Period.
I am suggesting fog lines and center lines.
Okay. And Rob, you're next.
Thanks, Mary. So through the chair, let me just, I think for my benefit and maybe others, let me just sum up where I think we are, and you can correct me, and then I have a comment. So as part of the, because I wasn't on the board either when this project was approved, but part of the approval of the project required the developer to pay $10,000 to the town of Hopkinton for traffic mitigation. So part of the Whalen Chamberlain project, where they were going to pay $10,000. So now we have the option to, as a board, vote to say, use this for speed tables on Wayland and Chamberlain, or I guess we have the ability to just not do anything tonight and just say no, or we could potentially just allocate that money to the DPW to do any type of traffic mitigation anywhere. Is that a possibility? That's what I don't know. Could we allocate it? Could we just provide it to DPW and say, use it the best use in the town?
I believe that we would be restricted, and I would want to restrict it to Chamberlain-Whalen. But I do believe we would have to restrict it to Chamberlain-Whalen because of the source of the funds.
Sounds like it.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, through the chair. So the one thing, you indicated, Mary, that there was some look into what works in this. I believe you said the speed table is deemed good. Okay, again, I'm not going to question that because I didn't look into it. Okay, what I would like to know is how many speed tables does $10,000 get you? One speed table, which is just concrete in a. Okay.
Yep.
Wow. So you had mentioned, I think, that we could request through DPW more funds somehow to maybe get two or nothing.
No, well, what we can do tonight is we can vote to release these funds to create a speed table. What else is done on Chamberlain and Whalen has to be done through the normal process to get funds allocated to a particular area or neighborhood.
Perfect.
So, that piece of it is a separate issue, a separate step.
Okay. Just one last thing, because obviously you were involved in the traffic calming discussion. Did you get any feedback from the residents of Chamberlain to see what their thoughts are about a speed table or any other mitigation process?
We had a probably hour-long discussion in a previous planning board meeting. It might have been just before you joined. And there was a lot of discussion on what they liked or didn't like, and possible other uses for the traffic calming. That included just speed limit signs, stop signs at certain corners, possibly flashing yellow or flashing red lights. Jane mentioned a couple of their possibilities, including including, lines, a center line, possibly sidelines, and all of which, there are lots of personal opinions and personal thoughts on whether or not they would work or not. And I have since heard from our safety and DPW is that the evidence shows that speed tables are pretty much the only thing that is effective or has evidence to show that it is effective, significantly effective. So.
Now, when this did the residents have any significant objection to that? That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, there were some people who had some objections to speed tables, but others felt it was a good idea. There were objections to every possibility, as well
That's
as
fair.
some people in favor. So
I just didn't want like 100% saying they don't want the table and
No.
then they were doing it. Okay.
that part.
So then,
was-
then I am in favor of releasing the funds. Thank you.
Dave, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to support you and keep this discussion focused on the traffic calming for Chamberlain-Whalen. To what Jane was looking for, I think is appropriate for a different meeting, different agenda item for other ways. Secondly, I just wanted to explain to Jane, because she said she'd never heard of a speed table. My impression is it's basically a speed bump with about a 5-foot flat area in the middle. So it's less of a bump. It's kind of slow down, go up, go over it, and go down. So I think that would work perfectly at the intersection of the Center Trail and Chamberlain. And I'd like to make a motion that we allocate the $10,000 for specifically that location. And I think that if it doesn't cover the complete cost, to your point, the DPW can chip in and get that done. This would be our first speed table, so we can put it in and monitor it and see how it works.
That's
So
true.
I'd like to make that motion.
I would second that motion.
Thank you. I am actually going to go to Fran, who had his hand raised, and Jane will be next before we go forward on that motion.
Yeah, just a point of discussion. I was also going to second it we jumped in with Ron. I will also commend, I think, Mary, and some of those additional discussions, because at the original discussion, we talked about a third party implementing a speed table at a much higher cost.
Mhm.
So to hear that the DPW group can actually put one in at a much more manageable, reasonable cost that I think we all have in our heads, closer to that $10,000 number is a very positive step for us to be able to do that. And then I think I think it's the appropriate place, and I would defer to the experts, but, Dave, I like the idea of being right near the Center Trail, where they come out on Center Trail. And then I think, the additional measures that don't show as much evidence to support them, although I think, boy, having a stop sign, at that corner, or even flashing lights, little things like that, even if it doesn't get somebody to 100% stop, to slow down, in the name of safety, and if there's pedestrians walking or school children walking, is only going to support, the whole traffic calming initiative that we have here on Chamberlain Street. So I'm in support. Full stop.
Thank you. Jane, you're next.
Sure. So full stop, no on the speed bumps. I've lived in neighborhoods and worked in neighborhoods where speed bumps are, at first thought, people love them. They think it's going to stop the traffic and slow it down and do all this stuff. You come down there with the landscaping trailers and the other tractors and the other trailers and the other trucks, and all it does is create noise and other huge problems for residents that are problems. And they think that it's going to slow the traffic down, but it doesn't. These landscaper trucks come down the road and they boom, 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 and they wake people up at 5 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night. So I would really like to get that out to the residents so that they know what it is that we're asking them to buy into. I think that non-invasive things like signage and lines painted, center lines, are much more effective. I think that we have to have more discussion going forward on this issue, and I would full stop say no to this, what we're proposing to right now.
Thank you. Rob, you have your hand raised?
Yes. So from Jane's point of view, I totally get her point of view. But the big question I have is if we approve allocation of funds, does that give implicit approval for the DPW to go forward? Like, do we know as we sit here what they would need to do to get resident buy-in that speed bumps would be a good solution? Because if I lived on that street, I would hate these speed bumps. The only place in town I can think of that these exist are on Loop Road. And anytime you go around Loop Road, around Hopkins or the high school, it's like, yes, it slows you down, but oh my God, I'm not speeding there anyway. It's super annoying. So I'm very curious what our approval to provide funds, if that's an automatic, there's going to be a speed table as soon as the DPW can put one in, or what do they have to, I guess my question is, what do they have to do to get approval to put one in?
I don't know all of the answers to that. However, that was one of the reasons I was recommending that we not dictate exactly what they do. We say an appropriate method of traffic calming, and that would give them the flexibility to work with those funds. However, John, do you have any information that you could briefly share with us in terms of what the procedure is usually for DPW to do one of these things?
DPW manages the roads. They don't need site plan approval. They may need select board approval,
Right.
but I don't know why they would need select board approval for that.
Muriel, are you aware of anything specific in terms of the procedures that are done for these types of things?
So I would have to research that a little bit. This is this conversation. I totally respect everybody sort of swinging away in here trying to make the best of an imperfect situation. So I actually was the chairperson for that hearing, so you're welcome. But besides that, so I think that I remember we talked about a speed table, and I don't think that we decided on a speed table. Is that something that has happened subsequently?
No.
Okay.
It's discussions that have been going on for a while.
Okay, so I'm not up to speed. So it was a challenging little road. We knew that we were going to be increasing the traffic there, and that was a big concern. And the best of my recollection is that we wanted a little contribution for something that would help. I think all things. I also totally respect Jane's expertise and her feedback in this discussion, because she has a really great sense of what makes roadways safer for drivers from her personal experience, professional experience. But I think that the only thing to do is to compile the residents' feedback, and it has to be designated for Chamberlain, and turn it over to the DPW to manage it the way they manage all roadway work. I mean, we just, this is a classic example of a board trying to do their best in a unique situation. And it's not our purview to do the roads, right? To do traffic calming and roads and so forth. But that was a substantial concern for the residents, and it was a uniquely specialized concern, just the way Chamberlain was and the changes that were going to be made. And it's a pretty straightaway road with a lot of houses with a lot of families that were very accustomed to a very quiet road. So it was, I apologize for the challenge that you're left with, but I don't think there's another way around it. And it's a little frustrating, I'm sure, for residents in particular, because they'd like a more streamlined approach, mechanism to affect whatever is going to be done on Chamberlain. But it's still going to have to be the DPW and public safety's call, I think.
Thank you, Muriel. And I would like to reiterate that I just think we need to leave this to our experts. The planning board, as you can see by even this discussion again today, we are rediscussing a lot of the things that we discussed at the last meeting, and we could go on like this for months because we're not experts. We're doing it from our own personal opinions, some of which, Jane, you have more experience than others, but nonetheless, it's still personal opinion, and we are not the experts. And so I would like us to proceed with releasing funds and giving some flexibility in the way that we release the funds. Sundar, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate what you just said. Time and again, we in the board say that let's rely on the experts. That's why we have the betas of the world. We have our experts in the world, our legal opinions and all. In this particular instance, this is $10,000 that, Muriel, thank you so much, that we got from the builder, from the developer to say, okay, let's do this. So in a way, this funding would not have been available. We are in a way enabling our experts to do their job a little bit more effectively. If this $10,000 wasn't there, would we still have traffic calming discussions? Probably yes. Does this $10,000 help a little bit? I think it does. So in the spirit of we relying on experts, I think let's vote to give this to the DPW, and they are the experts. So sort of I agree with I respect completely what Jane has said, but in reality we should be relying on the experts here, and I would be in favor of that.
Dave?
Sure. So are you calling on me or Dave?
Dave, I'm sorry. Yeah, Dave, I saw his hand up. You're muted, Dave.
I'm sorry. So I politely disagree with deferring to the experts. So I'm just going to be devil's advocate a little bit here. We've already we've had that in that meeting. We were told what is acceptable for the state of Massachusetts and what is not acceptable for the state of Massachusetts, and tables were accepted and speed bumps were not. And I totally agree with Rob and Jane on speed bumps. You don't want to have a series of speed bumps, clunk, 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 because they're a lot steeper. If you have a speed table, it's very gradual and it's flat. And it would fit in as a good location for the center trail because it would be the same height of the trail going across. So it would be multi-purpose. I think there's a lot of benefits to us suggesting that location and only one specific, with a lot of the concerns we already talked about with the cost of it and checking with neighbors. We already had meetings with the neighbors, so I would like to kind of cut to the chase and do this one spot and this one location that we've talked about for a long time. And, I think the DPW is on board with that. You've had some conversations with them. So I definitely do not support speed bumps, but I support the motion I made.
Jane.
Sure. So I really appreciate all of this conversation. I think it's really healthy going forward, especially with all of our growth that we're going through in Hopkinton. This is just one little road in Hopkinton that we're going to trying to improve, and we're going forward with all the rest. I agree that we should release the $10,000 to the DPW. I would also agree that we not include any specific language, whether it's pathway crossings. I agree with Dave that, and I'm not sure how to make this motion, but I think the center trail crossing needs to be addressed. Maybe it's just crosswalks, and that would be your $10,000. This is a pittance in the amount of money that we're going to need for this safety crossing, and maybe some fog lines and some, but yeah, maybe if we give the direction to the DPW to this area where we need this safety improvements in this area, and I would not include speed bumps, but I don't know, maybe Dave, you can come up with some kind of motion for that?
I would be, through you, Madam Chair, I'd be amenable to modifying it so that it's in that location, but not a specific.
See how far the $10,000 will go. It's not going to go far.
I would be okay with using it in that specific location and leaving it up to them how they want to do it.
Okay. And I would suggest that the amended motion wording talks about the funding going toward an appropriate traffic calming measure at the Center Trail intersection with Chamberlain.
Thank you. That would be
I'd be
good.
fine with that. Thank you.
Okay, and does whoever seconded it, do they agree with the amended motion?
I'll agree with that.
Thank you, Ronnie. Okay, is there any further discussion?
Mary, Rob here.
Go ahead, Rob.
Well, I guess through the chair, we started off this discussion by saying we shouldn't try to do other people's jobs, and now we're adding a condition trying to do other people's jobs of telling them where to place a speed table. It is not what we should be doing. We should leave it to professionals. None of us have taken any type of courses in traffic safety. It's exactly how we started the discussion. I'm totally supportive of releasing the funds for the DPW to do what they think is best, but for us to condition it, I am not in support of.
Okay, so currently the motion stands as releasing the funds and not talking about a speed table at all, but talked about appropriate traffic calming measures and specifying only the location, that it be at the Center Trail crossing of Chamberlain.
Would it be, Dave, would it be possible to, in your motion, to say something on the lines of with specific emphasis on that location without, so therefore it's without specifically saying that that's all we want, but with extra emphasis on that one intersection?
So through you, Madam Chair, I'd rather see my motion get voted as is. I understand Ron's input and Rob's input, but I still believe, even though we're not experts, we're knowledgeable about the town and how things should be planned. And I mean, that is our role to plan. And I think it makes sense, my motion. So I'd like to vote it up, and if it gets voted down, then so be it.
Can we hear your motion, Dave?
It was just to do allot them the $10,000 to the DPW to mitigate traffic calming at that location of the intersection of the Center Trail and Chamberlain.
So I guess one more thing through the chair.
Go ahead, Rob.
The Center Trail truncates at Chamberlain, so that there is no crossing. I don't know what we're doing here.
It's still the location where Center Trail meets Chamberlain. Okay.
But he's right.
So that is, yeah, it is a truncation. And yes, I could go with either version of the motion, but I think we need to go ahead and vote now. I'm just, giving one more last pause to see if there's any hands raised that need to speak.
I would say additional striping but no speed bumps.
You mean adding to the motion saying no speed bumps?
No speed bumps.
Yeah, but that does not eliminate speed tables because they're different things. But no, yeah. Okay, and Fran, did you have a comment?
You know what? Well, let's for the sake of moving this thing on. Let's vote.
I think we need to go ahead and vote on the motion that Dave just stated, and vote about releasing these funds to DPW with the expectation that they're being used for appropriate traffic calming measures at the truncation of Center Trail with Chamberlain Street.
And I thank you, Madam Chair. We could just add on with approved state standards, and that would eliminate the speed bumps, I believe.
I don't think so.
With an approved
Speed
state
bumps are-
standards. I
Yeah.
mean, that, to me, that's just a given. Approved state standards, that's DPW
Yeah.
would always do
Agreed.
it with approved
Would
state
keep that
standards.
out, yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. Okay. Everyone ready to vote?
Yes.
A yes is releasing the funds. A no is not releasing the funds. Sundar,
Sundar Sivaraman, yes.
Ron,
Ron Prefer, yes.
Dave,
Dave Paul, yes.
Rob,
No. Rob Benson, no.
Fran DeYoung,
Randy Young, yes.
Jane,
Jane Marin, yes.
Shahidul,
Nigel Manan, yes.
and Mary Larson Marlowe is a yes. So that's, I don't know, 6-1, with one recusing himself. And we are closed with this issue. Thank you very much.
Good
Nice job, Mary.
Enthusiastic input.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, I will turn this back over to Gary.
Thank you, Mary. And again, I apologize to put you on the spot with the bond amount, but appreciate you walking through that one and appreciate everyone's engagement on the topic. So, all right, so we've got a couple of things left here. Let's get through the Tennyson Swim Club extension request. And as the applicant is not here, John, do you just want to give us the 30-second overview of what they're requesting here?
Sure. So they are requesting an extension. They didn't specify an amount of time, but I don't see a year being unreasonable for the site plan approval. So the reason they gave is they got the approval in March of 2020, and everyone knows what happened in March of 2020. And I don't think anyone was really expecting them to build a participant-dependent use in the middle of a pandemic. So they did not. And now they want to get started with it. Now the pandemic is, knock on wood, looking to wind down in the somewhat future. But their approval would expire in March. So they're looking for an extension of that approval to get started on the work.
Okay, thanks, John. So just to clarify, what we would be doing is we would be extending extending their approval to March 2023. Correct?
Correct.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, you'd be extending the expiration of the approval. if you
Extending the
wanted to.
expiration of the
But
approval.
yeah.
Thank you. All right. Ron, you have a question?
Yeah, through the chair, is this meant to say that within March of 2023 they will break ground, or by March of 2023 they will have a more official documentation for us? I was a bit confused because I was reading the letter that was submitted December 21st.
So through the chair, I can answer that. Permits go into effect when there is a significant, can't think of the term now, significant action on the site, clearing and then putting in foundations, building a parking, creating a parking area, starting construction, that kind of a thing. They're not going to be able to just clear the site and then activate their permit. But yeah, it's usually the building department determines when they've started work on it, but it's really to basically begin and do significant or substantial work on the site rather than just kind of clear it.
So just to clarify, Ron, so they would need to, that's a start date for them, not a finish date.
Correct.
Yeah, true enough, but have they done anything on the site yet?
They have not.
They've cleared a good chunk of it. Not the applicant,
they haven't done any substantial work to activate the permit.
Yeah.
Do we know of a reason why they did not request a certain extension time frame? Is it just a lack of knowledge that they should have? Because John, you said like 1 year. It's like
yeah.
I
mean, I think at the end of the day, these are not professional developers. They run Tennyson swim clubs. So I think I just don't know if they know enough about the process. But again, I think that's where we give them another year. That gives them a little bit more time, and we can go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Fran,
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to extend for a period of 1 year the application for the Hopkinton swim and tennis
Edelman, second.
program.
all right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we will vote. Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Fran?
Randy Young, yes.
Jane?
Jane Marini, yes.
Dave?
Dave Paul, yes.
Sundar?
Sundar Sivaraman, yes.
Shahadul?
Edelman, yes.
Ron?
Ron Prefer, yes.
And Gary Trendle is a yes as well. And I know for one, I'm eager to see that get started, but hopefully I'm actually happy to hear they're back and requesting an extension because it hopefully means that it's still in the cards. So thanks everyone. Next item, we have some things coming to us from the Zoning Advisory Committee. And I think what might be most efficient here, just so everyone knows from a process perspective, we will have a public hearing on all of these articles. Tonight, what we need to vote on is whether we want to add these proposed articles to the town meeting warrant. And it's just kind of, think of it as establishing a placeholder in the warrant. We'll still go through a more formal review and hearing and refinement. All we're doing tonight is deciding if we think that, based on Zach's recommendations, if we think that these have a place or are worth reserving a spot in the town meeting warrant. So, John, yes.
I also want, and that was a good description, but I just also want to add, the planning board can opt to remove them from the warrant at any point in time. We can only add them to the warrant by January 31st.
All right, good point. Thanks, John. So I think, I mean, and again, I'm going to defer to some of the comments in the previous section. I mean, at this point, I do want to, weigh somewhat heavily on Zach's recommendations. But it might be most efficient for us here, John. Do you just want to quickly describe the background for each of these, and then I'm hopeful that like I said, we shouldn't have discussion about the actual proposed changes themselves. We will do that in the public hearing, but if we just a little bit more background, and then if there aren't any objections to it, then we can just go ahead and vote on adding these to the town meeting warrant.
So the first one is a dimensional table. This would be added as an appendix to the end of the bylaw. It basically just lists all of the districts and the dimensional requirements for each district, and then references where in the bylaw those dimensional items are located. So it's really just a reference.
Mary?
And this, I'll be very brief, is just an effort by the planning staff and Zach to create different ways to find the information appropriate in zoning bylaws rather than just reading lots and lots of text. Okay.
Perfect. Ease of use, making our bylaws easier to use. So.
Yeah.
The second one is a housekeeping article. It's kind of tied in with the third one, but separate. As we were doing the research for the third article, we noticed that a lot of the uses are plural and a lot of the uses are singular. So this just changes all of the uses to singular, which removes any confusion, because one of the reasons why we brought the third article up was, technically, depending on how you read it, you could put two single family uses on a lot because the allowed use are single family uses or single family dwellings. So we're changing all the uses to single family dwelling, two family dwelling, taking the S out and only making them singular uses. It was inconsistent. We're making it consistent. It's really just a housekeeping article, which leads us into the third article, which is one principal use per lot. This has changed from a little bit from Zach's perspective. Talking internally, the way that we had it in front of Zach was to only allow for one principal use per lot. But we realize there are a lot of different types of uses that are multiple principal uses on one lot, theoretically, or not theoretically, but specifically saying some of the retail uses where there's multiple retail storefronts on one lot. So this is just limiting that to one single family house per lot as a principal use. And it also adds a definition of what a principal use is. So we have a definition for accessory use, but not principal use. And that's just a clarification thing. But we can always look at it a little bit more for next town meeting to see if we want to limit more principal uses to only being one. But the real impetus for this whole change was the single family units. And so we wanted to just limit it to that to avoid confusion, hopefully make it a smoother process to get through. The fourth one is changing of a parking category, separating, and I can't remember what it is right now. I should open it.
Laboratory research and
Yeah.
development.
Yep, exactly. Laboratory research and development, industrial uses as its own parking category and creating a parking ratio for that use. And then lowering the amount of parking for warehouse uses. And in the same article, same kind of thing with the plural uses. Some of the categories said one space, and then some of them were plural spaces for some odd reason. So we are just changing that. So it was like one spaces, or I forget how it was actually written, but it just didn't make sense. So we're housekeeping that one so that it's all consistent to the actual number before it.
Real quick, John, Ron, you had a question?
That's through the chair. So you mentioned something about laboratory and research parking regulations are different than warehouses. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, I'm going to share the document.
Thank you.
So Ron, different uses have different parking requirements.
Yeah.
And this actually stems from, I'm drawing a blank on the name, but the new company that moved in over on
Street, yeah.
Thank you.
Lycan.
Yes. And I think that as they were going through the process, they felt that the requirements for the number of spots was not representative of what they actually needed. So that's kind of what prompted this.
And just, we'll go into this more obviously on the 31st, but we compared this against, or I should say John did, and compared this against a lot of other towns nearby to see what was out there, and also from our own knowledge. So basically was separating research and development from general office, because general office people are more densely packed than in a laboratory. And you can, and it's just and this is just the minimum requirements. So we do feel very strongly in Zach that that if somebody's building a new building and they know they're going to need more than these minimum, they're going to put them in, because it doesn't make sense not to have them available if they need them. But we shouldn't be requiring extra asphalt. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I just wasn't clear. The word minimum wasn't quite clear in my mind. Got it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So through the chair, these were also brought up by the Chamber of Commerce. They had a hand in this discussion, and we can talk about this more in the hearing, so I won't get into it. But the highlighting is where the changes are made. So like it said 1 spaces for every 3 beds, which obviously didn't make sense. So clean that up, and then 3 space per 1,000 square feet. So that's the housekeeping aspect. The other aspect is this portion, creating the new use, and then the warehouse essentially having the number of parking spaces. So it was 1 space per 1,000. Now it's 1 space per 2,000. Any questions before I stop sharing this? Okay. And then the final one is one that was proposed by the town manager's office, and that is it's a housekeeping article. It's removing the gendered terms and creating only gender neutral terms. So it'd be changing chairman to chair, and I forget what the other ones would be.
All right. Thank you, John. Any other questions about these and the intent of these without getting into details on the amendments themselves? And seeing none, then I will entertain a motion to, what's the right term here, John? We want to, is the motion to add these 5
Yes.
zoning articles to the warrant? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to add the 5 previously described zoning articles to the town meeting warrant for 2022.
So moved. Mary Larson Marlowe.
Second, Brandy Young.
All right.
Quick discussion, question?
Yes, go ahead, Dave.
Sorry for the lateness. Are all 5 of these are zoning bylaws and not general bylaws, right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're ready to vote. Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Fran?
Brandy Young, yes.
Jane?
Jane Marin, yes.
Dave?
Dave Paul, yes.
Sundar?
Sundar Sivaraman, yes.
Shahadul?
Raidul Manan, yes.
Ron?
Ron Prefer, yes.
And Gary Trundle is a yes as well. So again, I know we'll have a lot more discussion, but really appreciate all the work on Zach and to both Sundar and Mary for their roles in that. And hopefully these will be much less controversial than some of the things we've had over the last couple of years. So it's I know there's still a lot of work to do there, but appreciate you guys keeping this stuff moving forward and kind of continuing
Yes, thank you,
to
Zach.
clean up some of these
Thank
things.
you, Mary.
Awesome job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the last thing we have on our agenda is approval of minutes from October 19th and December 2nd. Before I entertain a motion, does anybody have any recommended revisions, questions, or whatnot about those meeting minutes?
Yes, to the chair. We voted on the the October 19th minutes at the last meeting, if I recall.
Through the chair.
Yes, Stephanie.
So unfortunately, I had the date correct. However, I had Monday, not Tuesday. So unfortunately, because it did go to town clerk to be stamped in, it does have to be amended and approved by you guys. That I changed it to Tuesday.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yep, thanks, Stephanie, and Ron, good catch. So
And
I will entertain a motion
through the
to,
chair.
yes, Mary.
Very silly one, but you just said December 2nd and it's December 6th. meeting. So I just
Thank you.
want to be clear.
So I will entertain a motion to approve the amended minutes from October 9th, 2021, and the minutes from December 6th, 2021.
So moved. Mary.
Raidul Manan, second.
All right, and assuming no further discussion, Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Fran?
Brandy Young, yes.
Jane?
Jane Marin, yes.
Dave?
Dave Paul, yes.
Sundar?
Sundar Sivaraman, yes.
Shahadul?
Raidul Manan, yes.
Ron?
Ron Prefer, yes.
And Gary Trendle is a yes as well. All right, so next meeting, the 31st, we've got a couple of things on it. We have the hearings for these town meeting articles. We will have the lot release for Chamberlain-Whalen. We also, as we discussed at the meeting last time, we're going to continue our discussion on subdivision design standards and how we move forward there. And then something else that John and I talked about is I do want to keep these work streams moving forward. So we're just we've agreed to just put those on for the second meeting of each month, just as a recurring theme to update the group and keep moving forward. But I know we all have some action items from that. That's all we have for tonight. I do have one more request for folks, and I know that things come up, and I'm certainly as guilty as anyone of missing meetings. But I guess my ask is, if you do miss a meeting, please make sure to go back and listen to the recordings. We're fortunate that these are recorded. And I guess my ask is, I want to try to avoid asking questions or asking people to repeat things that we've already talked about. And these meetings, I think there's a lot of good energy and ideas, and I appreciate all the discussion. But if you miss something, I don't want to. We have a tendency to repeat a lot of what's been said previously, and so my ask is, either one, if you're not sure about something, then you can always reach out to John or myself if you want to get some opinion or some background on something, or two, to some degree, if you missed it, then it's not necessarily fair to everybody else to have to go back and repeat discussions from earlier in the evening. So that's just a simple ask on my part. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Sorry.
Can I ask a really fast question? I'm sorry.
Yes, Muriel.
And I could have just asked John, but it should be quick. Have you folks heard, or will you be hearing the question on the trail proposal?
Which one? There's two.
The Upper Charles Trail proposal. Oh, Jane, I could have just asked you directly, right? Does that come before
Yes.
the planning
So
board?
there's two points to that. We have invited Peter Lagoy's group to present to our committee his thoughts about what he thinks would be.
Is that the 19th?
Yes.
This one? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So
Yep.
the Upper Charles Trail has not heard his proposal. So
Okay.
we have invited him to come and present to us what his vision is.
Oh.
Do you come before the planning board was my real question? Does your committee?
No,
come
we will not. Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
I'm sorry to disrupt your
We
meeting.
have not, because we do not have the information yet. We have not heard from Peter in this group. We do.
Oh, but on your proposal is what I was asking about, the Upper Charles Trail Committee current
Yes.
proposal.
However, no, because there has been a lot of criticism because we haven't entertained his what he envisions. But in all fairness, we have not heard from him.
Okay.
So he is coming to us on the 19th.
Great.
So
Thank
if
you.
I can just add a little bit more clarity, Muriel, originally the Upper Charles Trails Committee was going to give us an informal update actually at our last meeting. And given all of the town-wide discussion and whatnot, they took a step back, and I think they're gonna
we have to hear from them.
hear the alternative ideas. And I would say, Jane, I think I know that we don't, the planning board doesn't have any authority or decisions to make on this, but given our broader interest in trails, we very, very much would like to
At some point in time, you will have to, the planning board will have to approve, our broad concept, but we're nowhere close to that.
Okay.
So,
yeah. All right. Thank you so much. I was looking for that in your agenda tonight, and I just wanted to track that if it was coming.
No,
Okay.
we have invited him, and I'm looking forward to it on the January 19 meeting.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right,
Thanks
so we have
so
a
much.
motion to adjourn,
Second, Mary Larson Marlowe.
and we have a second. I'm assuming there's no further discussion on this, so we'll vote on adjourning. Mary, how do you vote?
Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Rob?
Rob Benson, yes.
Fran?
Randy Young, yes.
Jane?
Jane Marin, yes.
Dave?
Dave Paul, yes.
Sundar?
Sundar Sivaraman, yes.
Shahidul?
Rahul Manan, yes.
Ron?
Ron Prefer, yes.
And Gary Trindle's a yes. Get out there and look at those good subdivisions you like, and have a good couple weeks, and we'll see you on the 31st.
Happy New Year's, everybody.
Mr. Chair.
You too. Bye-bye.